Hi, my name is Cheryl Howard. I am from Prattville, Alabama. I am attending my last year at Auburn of Montgomery, and my major is an interdisciplinary degree in environmental science and a concentration in plant and soil biology. So I intend to graduate in the fall. What my research project is going to center around is research that is needed in water retention using cover crops for accessible information to cotton farmers. During my summer internship, I had an opportunity to go on mini farm tours where I had hands-on experience with learning about soil structure as well as bulk density and other things relating to the soil. I also learned various research methods used and also to work teamwork. Why is cotton important? Well, cotton provides work for 7% globally in the workforce. And it also serves for 250 million people around the world. It gives them an income. And cotton is the 64% of fiber that is produced from cotton. So we know cotton is a very important commodity. The questions that I researched here were the impact of using cover crops for moisture retention, impact on disease pressure, irrigation requirements, irrigation costs, and flooding on farms. And keep in mind, this is cover crops in relations to cotton production. The search methods that were used. Number one, when I started doing my search methods, I started with just putting something in what I normally do, the effects of using cover crops to decrease flooding. I really didn't get a great feedback on that, but I was advised by my teacher to go back in and start using things like quotations and asterisks, like that, like the example number 2. Number 2 shows where I use this type of method, and this method did give me success in my findings. Now the last three and 4, which are the last 2 methods, those methods did not give me a good feedback because it had like missing words like cover crops, cotton. It might have 1 or 2. And sometimes these methods kind of push me into Google Scholar where I had more scientific articles, more or less something that probably farmers would not take up a lot of time with reading. So the last 3 and 4 where you see not available, those were unsuccessful. And number 2 was the successful search methods that I used. The research types found, most of the articles were general articles. This is about 55%. And when I mean general articles, it was just maybe a 1 page. And these articles mostly were supported by companies that were trying to sell cover crop seeds or other type of product that they were trying to basically sell. 17% were actually scientific articles. And then I have 28% where there were extension fact sheets. Most of these articles probably were articles from university. I found a lot of articles from SARE. Also, the accessibility was taken into account. Most everything was accessible or available. Most like 20 articles was just readily available when it came down to soil moisture. Soil moisture was the topic that I was most successful in finding. I articles, very few, probably about 5 that was like I had to use a payment that I couldn't go any further without paying, or I saw a lot of them that you had to be a member in order to read these articles. I had a small percentage that were fully open as well. and then even a smaller method where it was fully open with general public interpretation. Irrigated and non-irrigated farms, which I noticed with my research, only one search showed that the farms were irrigated. Nearly all the searches that I found were saying that it didn't specify whether it was irrigated or not. And I thought it was kind of very shocking, because when you're dealing with soil moisture, you kind of really want to know if a farm is being irrigated or not. So I was kind of disappointed in that. Let's talk about why water retention is so important. Just like a plant, just like humans, they are very similar to plants. We need water to survive. So there has to be soil moisture or water retention. Also, the nutrient availability is very important, because nutrients are delivered to the plant by moisture. Also, moisture prevents wilting, and we also need moisture in the soil for microbial activity. And moisture is also important for the soil structure, because if there is no moisture in the soil, then the soil will be susceptible to erosion. The first question that I researched was the practices of using cover crops. How would this affect our moisture retention? Very quickly, all the articles really gave information that cover crops would give you 10 to 20% more moisture retention in the soil. Like I said earlier, mostly the information was very available when it talks about the moisture retention with using these cover crops. How do cover crops impact disease pressure? I learned something new researching this, because I never had heard of green bridge issue. And when it says green bridge issue, that means that if the cover crops was not fully terminated, that it could actually spread pest from the cover crop that wasn't terminated to the crop that the farmer is going to plant. So reading these documents, it kind of gave a sort of a negative feedback, because some of the farmers had questions regarding the pesticides, herbicides that needed to be used in termination, as well as time and labor with ridding these cover crops. The impact of irrigation water requirements. Here in my research, it gave me no amount of feedback that shows that a farmer used less water. For example, it does not say that a farmer used 1,000 gallons less water because of the fact that he had a cover crop. So that type of information was missing in regard to research. How will these practices affect irrigation costs? Here again, there were no information that led to say anything concrete to say a farmer saved $1,000 or monies in relation to using cover crop that affected his irrigation costs. Impact on flooding on a farm. This was an interesting articles that I found too, because the articles brought out that using a cover crop would not stop a flood. You know, no matter what crop you have, if it's gonna be a flood, it's a flood. But one interesting thing I did find out, that if a farmer did have a cover crop on his property, it did increase microbial activity, because of the fact that you had more of the crop decaying in the soil. One of the main benefits of the cover crop is basically the microbial activity, but it always addressed that if a farmer had a flood, just soon as possible get a crop into his field. So that was kind of negative and positive, but again, it did not stop a flood. There was not a positive effect to say that just because I had a cover crop, I wasn't going to get flooded. In conclusion, my feedback with my research is that more research is needed when it comes down to the use of cover crops that is available. There could be a lot of research that has been done, but it definitely needs to be a lot more available and accessible, easy to read for farmers, where they don't have to go to so many different sites to find their information. Another thing I thought about is a consultant, sort of like a middleman for farmers, that can come in and give them the positive nature, because we know that cover crops does improve the soil. There are many benefits of using cover crops, but does the farmer have a lot of time to go from article to article to article to actually get his information that he needs? I definitely feel like there should be other sites other than Google. If there could be just a site just dedicated to cover crops, or dedicated to an issue that cover crop could solve, I think that would be very helpful for farmers as well. I think visual videos, I think everybody can agree that we do live in a society where we need information really fast. We kind of think by what we see. So I think that would be more helpful for farmers if they had information videos that shows the benefits of cover crops. And I also feel like that there should be better incentives for farmers that want to do cover crops. If I was a farmer, one of my main objective would be how much time, labor, money that I would have to put into using cover crops, as well as would I have a profit margin? How much time would it take for me to actually see a profit if I was a farmer? I would like to thank Soil Health, SHI, for giving me the opportunity to attend this internship. I have really learned a whole lot, made great relationships. I was very impressed of all the work that is put into making products from cotton. I had no idea. So I am so enthused about taking the information that I have learned, as well as my research methods, and using them to further my career.
Awesome. Thank you, Shara. We have time for a question or two for Shara.
Shara, Cam Ogilvy here. I'm calling in from Canada. Good to meet you and great presentation. I am wondering, you mentioned there at the end in your conclusions the benefits of YouTube and videos and things like that. I'm just wondering if in your research process you came across any creative, outside of the box videos that people were packaging research related to the topics that you were looking at, and whether or not you came across anything that you really liked, anything that you'd recommend.
No, I did not, because most of the farmers that were on YouTube were, I would say, older, and I'm not saying old, but they was in the time where younger people use a lot of creativity now. They got videos where TikTok, a lot of creative. So the YouTube videos that I did see were people that you could tell had been in the farming industry for quite a while. So their methods that they were using were not creative. They were just the typical YouTube videos that we used, that we have been using for the past 20 years or so to relate information in regards to cover crops. So I think being more creative, basically submitting information the way that we submit information now. We are very creative when it comes down to how we put information across. So I do think that that's an area that really needs to be worked on.
Great question, Kim, and thank you, Shara. All right, thanks, Liz. Appreciate that.